The most profound secrets of reality were guarded not by gods, but by monsters. From the serpent in Eden to the silent Sphinx, these mythical creatures were the first to question the world we take for granted, challenging everything we think we know about truth and illusion. This journey will fundamentally transform your understanding of myth, revealing it not as simple stories, but as a coded philosophy for navigating a universe of shifting realities. We will uncover why a simple riddle could be a matter of life and death, and how a dragon embodies our deepest cosmic fears. By the end, you will never look at a fairy tale the same way again. What ancient creature do you think holds the most unsettling truth about our world? Deep in the roots of the world tree, a great serpent lies coiled. This image echoes across time, from the Norse Yggdrasil to the sacred trees of Mesoamerica. It is one of our most ancient and powerful symbols, a creature of profound contradiction. The serpent embodies both the healing power of wisdom and the destructive force of chaos. It offers the gift of eternal life, yet it also brings the sting of death. This dual nature is not an accident, but the very essence of its meaning. Consider the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest stories ever told. The hero Gilgamesh, after a long and arduous quest, finally finds a plant that can grant him immortality. But the moment he sets it down, a serpent slithers from the water and steals it. In that instant, the serpent denies humanity everlasting life, yet it claims the power of rebirth for itself, symbolized by its endless cycle of shedding its skin. This is not a simple tale of good versus evil. It is a far more nuanced lesson. The serpent reveals that the highest knowledge, the understanding of life and death itself, is never a simple gift. It always comes with a cost, a transformation, or a profound loss. The serpent's very body, a limbless form gliding effortlessly upon the ground, marks it as a being that knows the earth's deepest secrets. It moves between the world above and the world below, a creature of both the seen and the unseen. It forces us to ask a difficult question. What if true wisdom is not a clear and comforting light, but a complex and unsettling truth that changes us forever? This foundational idea that enlightenment is intertwined with danger and moral ambiguity is the serpent's lasting legacy. It prepares the way for the next great challenges of reality, creatures who do not lurk in the shadows, but who sit in plain sight, waiting with impossible questions. That serpent coiled in paradox finds its ultimate expression in a single, staggering image, a serpent devouring its own tail. This is the Ouroboros, an ancient symbol so powerful it appears across millennia, from the tombs of Egypt to the manuscripts of medieval alchemists. It forms a perfect, unbroken circle, a closed loop of self-creation and self-destruction. But this is far more than a simple symbol of natural cycles like the seasons. The Ouroboros is a radical philosophical statement carved in symbolic form. It declares that all beginnings and all endings are, in fact, an illusion. There is no true start and no final finish, only a continuous, self-sustaining loop of existence. Everything is eternally transforming, feeding back into itself. In the secretive world of alchemy, the Ouroboros represented the prima materia, the primal chaotic substance that existed before creation. It is the fundamental stuff of the universe, the source from which all matter emerges, and the destination to which it must inevitably return. This single image fundamentally questions the very structure of reality as we experience it. We live in a linear world, a straight line from cause to effect, from birth to death. The Ouroboros shatters that perception. It suggests our universe is not linear at all. but recursive and perhaps even holographic, a place where every single part somehow contains the information of the whole. The most profound truth the Ouroboros offers is this: by consuming itself, the serpent demonstrates that the one who seeks to understand reality and reality itself are not separate. The observer and the observed are one. To know the universe, you must, in a sense, consume your own assumptions and become part of the cycle you are trying to study. This cyclical challenger of truth, which turns reality into a loop, now leads us to a creature that uses language itself as a weapon, the Sphinx. Standing before the gates of Thebes, the Sphinx presented a riddle that was itself a cage. Its famous question, what walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at noon, and 3 in the evening, was a deceptively simple trap. The answer, a human being, reveals the riddle's terrifying purpose. It is not a test of cleverness, but a brutal examination of self-awareness. To fail was to be devoured, a stark illustration that in the world of myth, a flawed understanding of your own reality is a fatal flaw. The Sphinx embodies a chilling principle: the universe does not hand you truth. You must wrestle it from the jaws of the unknown, and ignorance is not bliss, it is a death sentence. This creature, part lion and part woman, was not merely a monster. It was the guardian of a terrible secret, the nature of existence itself as a puzzle that must be actively solved. When Oedipus finally provided the correct answer, his victory was more than a personal triumph. It was a declaration that human reason could, in fact, decipher the most profound existential mysteries. Yet his story is the ultimate warning. Solving the riddle saved him from the Sphinx, but the knowledge he gained ultimately led him into a far deeper tragedy, revealing his own identity and his unwitting crimes. The truth he won did not set him free, it destroyed him. This is the Sphinx's enduring lesson. The quest for understanding is perilous, and the answers we seek might shatter the very foundations of our world. This theme of a deceptive reality, where nothing is as it seems, finds its ultimate expression in the world's most elusive and untrustworthy beings, the Shapeshifters. That moment of recognition is a primal fear, the ground giving way beneath your feet when a trusted face shifts into something alien. This is the domain of the Shapeshifter, the archetype that attacks reality at its most fundamental level, the stability of form itself. Across cultures, these beings weaponize illusion. The Norse god Loki is a master of this art, fluidly changing his shape and even his gender to sow chaos or achieve his goals. In Japan, the kitsune or fox spirit might appear as a beautiful woman, a wise benefactor, or a cruel trickster, its intentions as fluid as its form. And in Navajo traditions, the terrifying Yinaldlushii, or skinwalker, wears the skin of an animal to walk undetected among humans. Their power is not merely in transformation, but in the violation of the basic categories our minds rely on to feel safe. They blur the line between human and animal, friend and foe, the real and the illusion. A kitsune's entire existence is a lesson in ambiguity. Is it a guardian spirit or a vengeful demon? The answer is often both, depending on the story and its whims. This forces a terrifying question upon us. If you cannot trust the evidence of your own eyes, then what can you trust? The Shapeshifter teaches that identity is not a fixed and solid thing, but a mask that can be worn or discarded. It embodies a profound philosophical idea that reality is not an absolute truth out there, but a perception constructed by our senses, a perception that can be expertly manipulated. This makes the world a place of profound uncertainty, where every encounter demands a deeper, more intuitive form of sight. It asks you to look past the surface, to listen for the false note in a seemingly perfect song. And it is in that very deception, the lure of a beautiful lie, that we find the next evolution of this unreality, the haunting call of the Sirens. A beautiful sound can be more dangerous than any claw or fang. The haunting melody of the Sirens did not attack the body, it invaded the mind, promising sailors everything they had ever wanted to hear. This was a threat crafted from pure desire, a psychological seduction so powerful it overrode the instinct for survival. Their song was said to contain all the knowledge in the world, offering ultimate wisdom and the fulfillment of every secret longing. In that moment, the promise itself became the reality, and the rocky shore became a welcome destination. The true genius of the Sirens' deception is that they did not create a lie out of nothing. They amplified the listener's own deepest yearnings, creating a distorted reality that felt more true than the real world. This is why Odysseus, the clever hero, knew he could not resist the call through willpower alone. He ordered his crew to plug their ears with wax and to tie him tightly to the ship's mast, commanding them to ignore his own desperate pleas to be set free. His strategy was a profound admission of human weakness. He acknowledged that the illusion was irresistible, and that the only way to navigate the truth was to create a system that protected him from his own desires. The Sirens force us to confront a difficult idea. Truth is not always a prize to be uncovered. Sometimes it is a treacherous current we must navigate by resisting the very things that call to us most strongly. They reveal that our reality can be completely masked and rewritten by the seductive power of what we want. A lesson in auditory deception that stands in stark contrast to a beast that weaponized visual confusion, the monstrous Chimera. Where the Sirens weaponized sound, another monster turned the visual world into a nightmare collage. The Chimera was a living impossibility, a fire-breathing horror stitched together from a lion, a goat, and a serpent. This was not a harmonious blend, but a violent clash of anatomies, a creature whose very existence spat in the face of natural law. Its body was a walking contradiction, a patchwork of parts that should never coexist. The lion, king of the land, the goat, a creature of the cliffs, and the serpent, a being of the underworld, all fused into one roaring, flame-spewing abomination. To gaze upon the Chimera was to witness the collapse of categories, to see the fundamental rules of the world you thought you knew unravel before your eyes. It represented a terrifying possibility that reality itself might be fundamentally incoherent, a chaotic and random assemblage without any underlying order or unifying principle. When the hero Bellerophon, riding the winged horse Pegasus, rose to battle this monster, his fight was about far more than simple survival. He was not just slaying a beast, he was attempting to impose logic on a world that seemed inherently illogical. He was fighting to prove that the universe could be understood, that it followed rules the human mind could grasp. The Chimera was a direct challenge to that very human need for patterns and consistency. It suggested that the true nature of existence might be wild, unpredictable, and utterly resistant to our neat systems of classification. This creature is the ultimate philosophical terror, a living question mark that forces us to ask if our cognitive frameworks, our sciences, and our philosophies are just fragile constructs we build to shield ourselves from a reality that is essentially monstrous and absurd. This confrontation with impossible forms was not just a Greek anomaly, but a foundational idea that entire cultures built their understanding of the world upon. The dragon's roar is a cosmic challenge echoing across the skies of nearly every culture on Earth. This is the ultimate challenger, a creature of immense primordial power that embodies the raw, untamed forces of the natural world. Where the serpent knew the secrets of the earth, the dragon commands the heavens and the deep places, representing a reality that exists entirely beyond human control. It is the ultimate test of our species' desire for dominion, yet how we perceive this beast reveals a profound cultural schism in our understanding of the cosmos. In the traditions of the East, particularly in Chinese mythology, the dragon is a benevolent and divine force. It is the ruler of weather and water, a symbol of the emperor himself, embodying the harmonious flow of Kai, the vital energy that structures the universe. This dragon is not an enemy to be slain, but a fundamental aspect of a cosmic order to be respected and integrated with. Its flight charts the proper currents of existence. The Western dragon presents a starkly different reality. In the epic of Beowulf or the legend of St. George, the dragon is a hoarder. It sits upon a pile of gold in a dark cavern, guarding treasure and virgins, representing greed, destruction, and the chaotic power that must be violently slain for civilization to flourish and expand. This dragon is a wall of fire standing between humanity and its destiny. This duality is far more than a difference in storytelling. It highlights a deep, philosophical debate about the ultimate nature of reality itself. Is the cosmos a harmonious, interconnected system of which we are a humble part, as the Eastern dragon suggests? Or is it a wild, chaotic force that we are destined to conquer and master through our will and our swords, as the Western narrative implies? The dragon forces humanity to define its most fundamental relationship with existence. It makes us answer whether we see ourselves as participants within a greater whole or as its rightful masters. This grand, external struggle for cosmic order finds its most intimate and terrifying expression in a being that turns this conflict inward, targeting the very core of the self, the doppelganger. That malevolent glint in your own reflection is a terror more intimate than any dragon's roar. This is the doppelganger, the monster in the mirror, a creature born from the darkest corners of our own psyche. It is not a beast from the outside, but a phantom from within. From its origins in Germanic folklore to its haunting presence in modern psychological thrillers, the double embodies the shadow self, all the hidden desires, fears, and violent impulses we lock away from the world and from our own conscious mind. The doppelganger weaponizes the most fundamental certainty we possess, our own identity, and shatters it. To see your own exact double walking the earth was considered one of the most dire omens, a harbinger of imminent death. This was not just a warning of physical death, but a symbolic one representing the complete fragmentation of the soul. It signified that the carefully constructed self you present to the world was cracking, and the hidden, repressed parts were breaking free to claim their own existence. The doppelganger poses the most unsettling riddle you will ever face, a question not about the world but about the very core of your being. Who are you, really? And if a perfect copy of you can walk and act independently, which one holds the truth of your existence? This creature tears down the illusion that we are singular, unified beings. It reveals the self as a contested territory, a constant, silent battle between the person we choose to be and the person we fear we might be. The doppelganger forces a confrontation with the parts of reality we meticulously hide from ourselves, turning the inner world into a landscape as treacherous and unpredictable as any monster-filled forest. This profound fragmentation of the individual soul finds its parallel in the external world, where entire spaces were guarded against such internal and external chaos by powerful, hybrid guardians. These guardians are the ultimate gatekeepers, the sentinels of the sacred line. Stand at the edge of a forbidden temple, a sacred grove, or the yawning entrance to the underworld, and you will find them waiting. Cerberus, the monstrous three-headed hound, does not merely guard the realm of Hades. He is the boundary. His snarling heads, his serpent tail, they physically manifest the absolute separation between the land of the living and the kingdom of the dead. To pass him is to cross from one state of being into another, to enter a reality that operates on entirely different, irrevocable laws. Similarly, the mythic griffins, with the body of a lion and the head and wings of an eagle, were said to guard vast treasures of Scythian gold. But they were not protecting mere wealth. They were guarding the raw, unconquered power of the earth itself, a power that was not meant for casual possession. Their role is not simply to block a path, but to test the very essence of those who approach. They enforce a profound and unsettling principle that the deepest truths of existence are not a public library open to all. Certain realities are reserved, accessible only to those who have been purified by ordeal, initiated into secret knowledge, or who possess the rare courage to stare into the abyss without flinching. This challenges our modern, democratic assumption that all knowledge should be freely available. These guardians suggest the universe itself is structured in layers, an esoteric hierarchy where deeper understanding must be earned, not given. The trial to pass them is never just a physical fight. It is a confrontation with the self. To answer the riddle of the Sphinx, Oedipus had to prove his understanding of human nature. To descend past Cerberus, a hero like Orpheus had to prove the depth of his love and his resolve. The guardian does not ask if you are strong enough to enter. It asks if you are ready to face what lies beyond, and if the truth you seek will ultimately shatter you or make you whole. The hero's shield becomes his only true weapon against a truth too terrible to face directly. When Perseus confronted Medusa, he did not meet her petrifying gaze. He used the polished surface of his shield as a mirror, viewing her lethal reality only through a reflection. This was not a clever trick, but a profound philosophical act. It reveals that some truths are so overwhelming, so fundamentally destructive to our current state of being, that they cannot be confronted with raw courage alone. They demand a new way of seeing. The hero's journey is built upon this principle. The battle is never merely against an external monster. It is a ritualized process where the hero must develop a higher form of consciousness to overcome a lower, more chaotic state of being, a state that the monster perfectly embodies. The dragon is not just a beast hoarding gold. It is the external form of a kingdom's greed and fear. The Sphinx is not just a riddler. It is the manifestation of a city's collective ignorance about its own identity and past sins. By solving the riddle or slaying the beast, the hero does more than save the day. They perform a kind of psychic surgery on their entire culture. They confront the fragmented, denied, or terrifying aspect of reality that their society has been unable to face, and through their actions they integrate it. This act of integration is the true victory. It is not the destruction of the monstrous, but the absorption of its power and its lesson, bringing a fractured world back into a temporary, hard-won balance. This is why the hero's return is so vital. They bring back the reclaimed treasure, the new knowledge, the evolved perspective, and in doing so, they demonstrate that progress, whether personal or cultural, is born from this specific kind of confrontation. We navigate our own lives through smaller versions of these trials. Every time we are forced to use a new tool, adopt a different perspective, or face a reflection of our own fears to solve a seemingly external problem, we are walking the same mythic path. The hero's journey is humanity's grand metaphor for learning to live with a reality that is often too bright, too dark, or too complex to stare at directly. And just as the hero integrates the monster's lesson, these ancient cultures wove their most profound understandings of existence into the very fabric of their daily lives, transforming cosmic uncertainty into a structured and sacred world. That struggle for order was not a solitary quest, but a collective human endeavor etched into the very soul of ancient societies. step back and view mythology as a vast, collaborative psychological project. These stories of serpents and sphinxes were far more than entertainment. They were sophisticated cognitive tools crafted to process the overwhelming and inexplicable parts of existence. Think of the profound mysteries that confronted our ancestors: the finality of death, the terrifying power of an earthquake, the bizarre and vivid landscapes of dreams, the sheer, incomprehensible scale of the starry sky. These were not abstract concepts, they were daily realities that defied easy understanding, so humanity gave them form. A devastating storm was not a random event, it was the wrath of a sea serpent churning the waters. The creation of the world was not an accident of physics, but the clever, chaotic mischief of a trickster god. By weaving narratives around these phenomena, our ancestors transformed a frightening, chaotic universe into a place of intention. It became a world with actors, motives, and stories, which is a world that can be understood, appeased, and even negotiated with. This process created a powerful symbolic language, a shared framework that allowed entire cultures to discuss the undiscussable. What is death? It is a journey across a river guarded by a hound. What is the unknown? It is a dark forest inhabited by shapeshifters. These myths were the ancient equivalent of scientific models. They provided not just explanations, but something even more crucial, a sense of meaning and order. They reassured people that even in the face of apparent chaos, there was a pattern, a purpose, a story being told. This deep-seated need to find structure in the storm is a fundamental part of being human, and this symbolic framework for understanding the world was not confined to campfire tales. It was deeply intertwined with the sacred rituals and spiritual practices that gave life its rhythm and its reverence. That sacred, structured world was not a final destination, but a gateway. The shaman knew this path intimately, stepping through the veil not with a sword, but with a drumbeat and a focused mind. In the trance state, the solid ground of ordinary reality softens and dissolves. The physical world and the spiritual world bleed into one another, and it is here, in this liminal space, that the creatures return, not as monsters to be slain, but as essential companions. The shaman might find themselves riding the eight-legged steed Sleipnir through the roots of the world tree, or locked in a transformative struggle with a serpent that offers not poison, but a shocking surge of spiritual power. In the traditions of the Amazon, the shaman communes with the spirit of the jaguar, absorbing its vision and its stealth. These beings are not symbolic metaphors in the way we might understand a literary device. To the shamanic worldview, they are as real as the trees and the rivers, simply existing in a different vibrational layer of the cosmos, one that becomes perceptible in altered states of consciousness. Consider the Nagas of Hindu and Buddhist lore. These powerful, serpentine beings are said to dwell in magnificent, jeweled palaces in a subterranean dimension. They are guardians of profound esoteric teachings and control the waters and the weather. A practitioner in deep meditation might encounter a Naga not as a fantasy, but as a direct, intelligent presence, an entity that can bestow blessings or unleash calamity. This interaction is a practical engagement with a layered universe. The celestial stag is a guide to the upper worlds, the spirit serpent is a conduit to the earth's raw energy, and the bird of prey offers a perspective from a higher, more detached vantage point. Each creature is an agent, a specialized key that unlocks a specific chamber of this greater reality. This entire framework presents a radical challenge to our modern, materialist assumption that there is only one objective physical world. The shamanic view proposes that multiple, equally valid realities are stacked atop one another, interpenetrating our own. Our everyday waking life is just the most dense and obvious layer, the surface of a far deeper and more complex ocean of existence. This is not a primitive superstition, but a sophisticated cosmological model found in esoteric traditions worldwide. It suggests that the universe is a multi-dimensional construct, and that with the proper training, sensitivity, and intent, human consciousness can learn to navigate its many realms. The journey through these layers was not a random wandering, but a deliberate quest for a specific, powerful tool, one that could rewrite the very laws of nature, the ultimate symbol of transformation, the Philosopher's Stone. The cryptic illustrations of alchemy are a secret language where the serpent and dragon chart a path to enlightenment. Within these ancient texts, the Ouroboros is not merely a symbol, but an active instruction. It represents the endless cycle of solve et coagula, dissolution and coagulation, where the self or substance is repeatedly broken down to its essence and then rebuilt in a purer form. This is the painful, necessary rhythm of true transformation, a process of spiritual death and rebirth mirrored in the serpent eternally consuming its own tail. Alongside it, the dragon emerges as a fearsome but crucial force. This dragon is the raw, chaotic prima materia, the unrefined lead of the human soul, teeming with primal fears, desires, and chaos. It is the volatile, fiery aspect of our own nature that must be confronted and mastered. The alchemist's goal was not simply to create physical gold, but to achieve the magnum opus, the great work of turning the base lead of a mortal, flawed existence into the spiritual gold of an enlightened, immortal self. This was a journey inward, and the dragon was the ultimate guardian of the threshold. To slay the dragon was not to destroy this raw energy, but to harness it, to transmute its chaotic fire into the steady light of consciousness. The creatures in these manuscripts are not monsters in a cave, they are maps of the psyche. Each step of the alchemical process, from the blackening of Negrido to the final reddening of Rubido, corresponds to an inner stage of confronting shadow, purifying intention, and achieving a unified self. This entire endeavor was a radical questioning of apparent reality. The alchemist looked at a mortal life bound by time and frailty and declared it an illusion to be transcended. They sought to uncover a more permanent, divine reality hidden within the mundane, using the dragon and serpent as guides through the labyrinth of their own soul. This reveals a profound psychological truth that echoes in our lives today. Our own growth often demands we face our inner dragons, those chaotic parts of ourselves we fear, and through that struggle, integrate them into something stronger and more whole. The quest for enlightenment is always, at its core, an alchemical transformation of the self. The monsters we fear most are often the ones we have created from our own depths. Carl Jung, a pioneer of psychology, offered a revolutionary key to understanding this phenomenon. He proposed that the human psyche contains a collective unconscious, a deep, shared reservoir of memories and impulses inherited from our ancestral past. Within this reservoir reside archetypes, universal patterns of thought and imagery that form the bedrock of our dreams and our myths. The serpent, the sphinx, and the dragon are not merely fictional beasts. They are the waking forms of these primal symbols externalized into story. They are the language of the soul speaking through metaphor. Consider the shadow archetype, the repository of everything we repress and deny about ourselves, our hidden angers, our shameful desires, our untamed instincts. Is this not the perfect description of a dragon, hoarding its dark treasure in a cavern, or a shapeshifter, hiding its true nature behind a mask? By projecting this inner conflict onto a monster, we can confront it at a safe distance. Slaying the dragon in an epic is a symbolic act of facing your own capacity for greed or rage. The Sphinx embodies another archetype, the complex fusion of opposing natures, challenging the ego, the conscious part of the mind that believes it is in control. When Oedipus answered its riddle, he was not just saving a city, he was performing an act of individuation, Jung's term for the lifelong process of integrating the unconscious parts of the self into a whole, conscious individual. Solving the riddle forced him to acknowledge the complex, multi-stage nature of a human life, a truth his own ego was desperately avoiding. Even the trickster, like Loki or a kitsune, plays a vital archetypal role. It disrupts our rigid perceptions, shattering our comfortable illusions to force a broader, more flexible understanding of the world. These stories are not escapism. They are a form of profound self-therapy. Every time a culture tells a tale of a hero navigating a labyrinth or outwitting a siren, it is guiding its people through a shared process of psychological integration. The monstrous challenges we project outward are maps for navigating the uncharted territories within. We use these external narratives to safely question the limited reality constructed by our conscious ego, to engage with the vast, unknown mystery of our complete being. This intricate relationship between the inner self and the outer world was so fundamental that ancient cultures physically carved it into the very land they inhabited. The land itself could become a living oracle. Certain locations on the earth were not merely scenic, they were active interfaces with the unseen. Delphi in Greece was not just a temple complex, it was revered as the very navel of the world, the central point from which all creation emanated. Here, a deep chasma in the rock breathed forth strange, intoxicating vapors. A priestess, the Pythia, would seat herself above this fissure, inhaling the sacred gases to enter a trance state. Her ensuing, often riddling, prophecies were not considered her own words, but the voice of the god Apollo himself, channeled directly through this geological portal. The site's power was so potent it had to be won through a mythic struggle, for Apollo first had to slay the great serpent Python, the ancient guardian of the chasm, to claim the location for his own. This act of conquest was more than a simple change of ownership. It was the establishment of a new order of knowledge, a taming of the Earth's raw, chthonic power into a source of divine counsel. Far to the north, the rolling green hill of Glastonbury Tor in England rises from the flat Somerset levels like an island. For centuries, it has been shrouded in legend, most famously as the mythical Isle of Avalon, the final resting place of King Arthur. This was a place where time itself seemed to warp, where the barrier between our world and the enchanted otherworld grew thin enough to cross. To stand on its summit was to feel yourself in two places at once, the here and the now, and the timeless, mist-shrouded realm of myth. These locations and countless others like them were understood as liminal spaces. They were thresholds, geographical points where the ordinary rules of reality were temporarily suspended. The solid ground of logic gave way, and communication with the divine, the dead, or the fairy folk became a tangible possibility. The geography was an active participant in the cosmos, not a passive stage. Mountains, springs, caves, and groves were seen as natural amplifiers of spiritual power, each one a potential portal to another layer of existence. To journey to such a place was to step into a different ontological zone, a region where the very nature of being was altered. The abstract questions posed by the Sphinx or the Serpent suddenly felt immediate and personal. The search for answers was no longer a philosophical exercise, it was an experiential one. This belief in a spiritually charged landscape reveals how ancient peoples experienced reality not as a flat, material plane, but as an interactive, multidimensional field, alive with intelligence and possibility. We have never truly abandoned this intuitive cartography of the sacred. The legacy of these beliefs persists in the quiet awe we feel at a breathtaking vista, the hushed reverence in a grand cathedral, or the unshakable feeling that some places simply hold a unique and powerful energy all their own. The gray alien is the modern world's fairy. In countless abduction accounts, these beings appear not with a dragon's roar, but with a silent, clinical precision, spiriting people away to sterile, brightly lit rooms. The experience is eerily familiar to older tales of being taken by the Shia into a fairy mound, where time behaves strangely and the rules of human agency are suspended. Both the alien and the fairy are non-human intelligences operating just outside the edges of our consensus reality. Their motives a perplexing blend of curiosity, experimentation, and an unsettling indifference to our desires. They are the latest iteration of the other, the being that forces us to confront the limits of our control and the fragility of our understanding. This is not a coincidence, but a continuation of a deeply ingrained human process. We have simply swapped the enchanted forest for the void of space, the magical glamour for advanced technology. The fundamental questions, however, remain unchanged. Who are we in the cosmos? Are we merely subjects in a larger, incomprehensible experiment? The UFO phenomenon, in all its mystery, challenges the very foundation of scientific materialism, the belief that matter is all that exists. It introduces a persistent, unsettling ambiguity that our current tools cannot neatly categorize or explain, just as the Sphinx introduced a riddle that logic alone could not initially solve. Look at the shape-shifting founders in Star Trek, beings of pure liquid who can assume any form. They are the mythological trickster given a sci-fi vocabulary, forcing the rigid Federation to question its own definitions of identity and sovereignty. The dragons of Game of Thrones are not just weapons, they are walking, fire-breathing challenges to the political order, living symbols of a power that cannot be tamed by mere laws or titles. These modern creatures are not lazy copies. They are vital adaptations using the language of genetics, quantum physics, and interstellar travel to probe the same eternal anxieties. They ask us what it means to be human in an age of artificial intelligence and genetic engineering. They force us to wonder if our governments and societies are built on a true understanding of power or on fragile illusions. The human psyche still requires these symbolic opponents to test its boundaries. Our new serpents and sphinxes simply wear a different skin, continuing the ancient, essential work of using the monstrous and the unknown to map the ever-shifting contours of our own reality. These creatures are not just monsters, they are a radical philosophical argument carved from myth. Each one interrogates the nature of truth from a different, unsettling angle. The serpent in the garden offers a devastating proposition that the most profound truths are not given freely, but must be taken, often at the price of your innocence and comfort. It frames knowledge as a dangerous acquisition, a fruit stolen from a tree that forever changes the one who consumes it. The Sphinx takes this further. It presents truth not as a thing to be found, but as an active puzzle that must be solved, with failure meaning annihilation. Here, understanding is not a luxury, it is the fundamental requirement for the right to exist. Then the Shapeshifter arrives and shatters the entire foundation. It declares that truth is not a stable object at all, but a fluid performance, a mask that can be worn or discarded at will. It suggests that what we call reality is a fragile consensus, easily manipulated and never to be fully trusted. Taken together, these mythic beings form a coherent and deeply skeptical worldview. They stand in direct opposition to the idea of a single, simple, objective reality that we can all plainly see. Instead, they advocate for a perspective that is fluid, deeply contextual, and often wrapped in paradox. The serpent's knowledge costs you paradise. The Sphinx answer saves your life but damns your future. The Shapeshifter's deception reveals a deeper instability. They collectively teach that our perception is not a passive camera recording the world. It is an active participant, a force that helps to create the very world we are trying to perceive. This is not a call for nihilism or despair. It is an invitation to a more humble, engaged, and nuanced relationship with existence. It is a philosophy where the act of questioning is seen as more valuable than the brittle possession of certainty. The journey of understanding, with all its twists and dangers, is valued more highly than any final destination. This ancient, monstrous wisdom forces us to reconsider the very foundations of what we call real. And this profound skepticism about a fixed reality naturally extends to the most foundational stories we tell, the very tales of our own origins and the creation of the cosmos itself. That serpent in the garden is the most misunderstood character in our entire mythic history. For thousands of years, we have been taught a single, damning story, that it was the father of lies, the deceiver who introduced sin and death into a perfect world. But what if we have been reading the story backwards? Look closely at the serpent's actual promise. It tells Eve that if she eats the fruit, her eyes will be opened, and she will become like God, knowing good and evil. This is not a deception, it is a precise and accurate prediction. After they eat, the very first thing that happens is that their eyes are opened. They see their own nakedness and feel shame, a profound new level of self-awareness. And then God himself confirms the serpent's truth. Behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. The serpent did not lie, it delivered on its promise. So why is it the villain? The traditional interpretation hinges on disobedience, the violation of a divine command. But from another angle, the serpent's act is the single most important event in human evolution. It was the catalyst for consciousness. Before the fruit, humanity lived in a state of innocent ignorance, a blissful but passive existence where all moral choices were made by a higher authority. There was no true self, no individual will, no capacity for complex moral reasoning. The serpent offered the painful, terrifying, but ultimately defining gift of knowledge. It gave humanity the burden and the glory of choice. In that moment, we were forced out of an infantile paradise and into the difficult, messy reality of moral and existential adulthood. This reframes the serpent not as a mere tempter, but as a Promethean figure. Like Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods to give to humanity, the serpent stole the fire of moral consciousness and handed it to us. It questioned the reality of a pre-programmed, ignorant bliss and offered instead the profound, often agonizing reality of self-determination. The expulsion from Eden was not a punishment for a crime, but the inevitable consequence of growing up. You cannot remain a child in a garden once you have tasted the knowledge of the world. This reinterpretation challenges millennia of religious doctrine, inviting a far more nuanced understanding of wisdom itself. It suggests that true enlightenment is not about returning to a state of innocent obedience, but about courageously navigating the complex world of choices that the serpent first revealed. This foundational act of questioning a prescribed reality sets the stage for every challenger that follows. Oedipus solved the Sphinx's riddle, but he never understood it. His answer, a human being, was correct in the abstract, yet a catastrophic failure on a personal level. The creature was not presenting a generic puzzle. It was holding up a dark mirror to the man standing before it. The riddle of the creature that walks on 4 legs, then 2, then 3, was the precise map of Oedipus's own tragic life. He had crawled as an infant, his ankles pinned together and cast out to die. He now stood on 2 legs as the proud king of Thebes, hailed as its savior, and he would eventually shuffle away from the city, blind and broken, leaning on a staff as his 3rd leg. The Sphinx presented him with the complete, devastating truth of his own existence. a prophecy encoded not in words from an oracle, but in the simple stages of a human life. He knew the definition of a man, but he had no knowledge of the man he himself was. He was ignorant of his true parentage, unaware of the king he had killed on the road, and blind to the horrific fate he was racing to fulfill. His brilliant solution to the external riddle was proof of his profound failure to solve the internal one. The Sphinx did not just guard the city gates, it guarded the threshold of self-awareness. By answering correctly, Oedipus gained a crown and a queen, but he lost his last chance to truly see himself and avert disaster. The monster's true question was never about mankind in general. It was a single, pointed inquiry aimed directly at Oedipus' soul. Who are you? And in that moment, his intellectual triumph became the very engine of his ruin. This is the Sphinx's ultimate lesson, that a truth we can recite but cannot live is the most dangerous ignorance of all. From the riddles of Oedipus to the quiet wisdom of the shaman, this serpentine thread weaves a global tapestry. Look to the sacred waters of India and Cambodia, where the Naga reigns. These are not mere snakes but majestic, semi-divine beings, often depicted with multiple hooded heads. They are the guardians of rivers, lakes, and the underworld, controlling the rains that bring life to the land. More than that, they are the protectors of the deepest spiritual truths, the esoteric teachings of the Buddha himself. In one famous story, the serpent king Mukalinda sheltered the meditating Buddha from a violent storm, his great hood a living canopy shielding enlightenment from chaos. The Naga embodies a powerful duality, capable of bestowing blessings and prosperity, but also of unleashing devastating floods if displeased. They are the custodians of knowledge that is both life-giving and perilous, a wisdom that must be approached with respect. Now cross the world to the towering pyramids of ancient Mesoamerica. Here, the feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl, takes flight. His very form is a perfect philosophical statement, the body of a serpent fused with the brilliant plumes of the Quetzal bird. He unites the earth and the sky, the material and the spiritual. Quetzalcoatl was not a fearsome monster, but a civilizing god, a bringer of knowledge, art, and agriculture. He gave humanity maize, the sacred sustenance of life. He was the god of wind, the very breath of the world, and a priest king who rejected human sacrifice, embodying a path of wisdom and compassion. Yet, even this benevolent figure is entwined with themes of death and rebirth, descending into the underworld to create a new era for humanity. The Naga in its watery realm and Quetzalcoatl in his celestial flight, though separated by an ocean, are both expressions of the same profound archetype. The serpent, in all its global forms, consistently points to a reality that is cyclical, not linear. It connects us to the primal, chthonic power of the earth, while also symbolizing the ascent into higher consciousness. It guards the most potent secrets, whether they are spiritual truths or the source of life itself, reminding us that such knowledge is never safe or simple. It always carries the potential for both creation and destruction. This is not a coincidence. This cross-cultural resonance suggests that humanity, in its collective imagination, has repeatedly identified the serpent as the perfect symbol for the core dynamics of the cosmos. We have all looked upon the same mysterious forces of nature, the same puzzles of life and death, and independently arrived at a similar conclusion, giving it the form of a powerful, ambivalent, and deeply wise serpent. This shared intuition reveals our universal attempt to grasp a reality where opposites are forever intertwined. Chaos has its own peculiar genius, a divine madness embodied by the Trickster. Where the Sphinx posed a formal riddle, the Trickster simply pulls the rug out from under your feet. This archetype, found in the clever spider Anansi of West Africa, the ever-scheming Norse god Loki, and the endlessly foolish coyote of Native American traditions, operates on a simple, disruptive principle. They exist to break things, to shatter the comfortable pottery of convention and force everyone to look at the scattered pieces. Their primary tool is not a sword, but a prank, a lie, or a theft that reveals a deeper truth. Loki's deceptions constantly upend the order of Asgard, leading to unintended consequences that often forge new realities, like the creation of Thor's mighty hammer. Coyote's greed and blunders in stories explain why the world looks the way it does, how the stars were scattered, or why death entered the world. Their chaos is not merely destructive, it is profoundly creative. By violating every taboo and ignoring every rule, the trickster exposes the arbitrary nature of what a society deems real or true. They demonstrate that the established order is not a law of nature, but a fragile agreement, a story that everyone has agreed to believe for a time. Anansi does not just spin webs, he spins narratives that outwit larger, more powerful beings, showing that intelligence can triumph over brute strength. The trickster teaches through negative example, their failures and humiliations serving as cautionary tales about vanity and foolishness. Yet their greatest lesson is that progress and innovation are almost always born from a breakdown. The old, comfortable reality must be unmade before a new, more adaptable one can be built. They are the ultimate agent of cognitive flexibility, reminding us that rigid certainty is a dangerous illusion in a fluid universe. To survive, you must be willing to adapt, to learn from the chaos, and to see the world not as a fixed stage, but as a game where the rules can and will be rewritten by a laughing spider or a mischievous god. A vampire is never just a vampire. It is a walking, breathing diagnosis of its time. The monsters that haunt our stories are not random inventions. They are the embodied anxieties of the societies that birthed them, giving tangible form to the formless fears lurking in the collective psyche. Look at the dragons and demons of the Middle Ages. These were not mere beasts. They were the externalized terror of a wilderness that lay just beyond the castle walls, a dark forest filled with pagan remnants and the constant threat of divine punishment. They represented a chaotic, untamed world that faith and fortress were meant to hold at bay. Then, as society shifted, so did its nightmares. The Gothic era gave us the vampire and the ghost. These creatures did not stalk the wilds. They invaded the home, the bedroom, the very sanctity of the self. The vampire, with its predatory sexuality and mysterious transmission of a cursed condition, perfectly mirrored anxieties about disease, repressed desire, and the terrifying blurring of the line between life and death. It was the fear of corruption from within, a decay that looked elegant and alluring. Fast forward to the 20th century, and a new titan rises from the sea. Godzilla is not a mythical beast from an ancient grimoire. It is a direct consequence of the atomic bomb, a colossal, radioactive monster born from humanity's own technological hubris. Its rampage was a perfect metaphor for the sheer, incomprehensible terror of nuclear annihilation, and the fear that science had progressed beyond our ability to control it. The giant monster film became the era's way of processing a fear too vast for ordinary words. So what does this tell us about the serpents and sphinxes of the ancient world? They were the cultural diagnostics of their time, a society grappling with the profound questions of fate, free will, and the price of knowledge created the Sphinx, a creature that made understanding the self a matter of life and death. A culture deeply concerned with the cyclical nature of reality, the mysteries of life and death, and the dangerous allure of enlightenment gave us the serpent, the ultimate symbol of ambivalent wisdom. The monster is a mirror. It reflects back at us the specific aspects of reality that our society finds most threatening, most incomprehensible, or most in need of confrontation. By studying the creatures a culture fears, we are not just reading fairy tales. We are reading a detailed report on the state of the human soul in that particular moment in history. These beings are the living, breathing questions a society is desperately trying to answer, making mythology a dynamic, living dialogue with the unknown that continues to evolve right alongside us. The riddle's deadly echo has not faded. It has simply been repackaged for a modern audience. We no longer face the Sphinx at the city gates, but we willingly pay to be locked in a room with a 60-minute timer, surrounded by cryptic clues. The modern escape room and the intricate puzzle of a video game are the direct descendants of that ancient confrontation. They are formalized, safe simulations of the existential challenge, turning the life or death stakes into a thrilling game of intellect. At its core, every riddle presents a world where the surface meaning is a deliberate deception. The words say one thing, but the solution requires you to see another. You must search for hidden patterns, grasp unexpected metaphors, and forge connections between seemingly unrelated ideas. This mental process is a voluntary exercise in cognitive flexibility. It forces your brain to abandon its initial, straightforward assumption and consider the problem from multiple angles at once. Solving a riddle is not about raw knowledge, it is about restructuring your perception. The deep and enduring pleasure we find in this act, from children giggling over a simple wordplay to adults hunched over a complex logic puzzle, points to something fundamental in the human spirit. We are hardwired for the thrill of decoding, for the moment of discovery when the hidden truth clicks into place. This is more than mere entertainment. It is a form of practice. We are training our minds for those real-world moments when reality itself presents us with a paradox, a professional dead end, or a personal crisis that cannot be solved with conventional, linear thinking. The riddle, in its purest form, is a tool for expanding consciousness. It teaches us to look past the obvious and to perceive the multiple, shimmering layers of meaning that constitute our actual experience. This practiced mental dexterity becomes our most vital skill for navigating a world that is rarely as simple as it first appears. Science has mapped the genome and charted the cosmos, yet the oldest mysteries remain stubbornly intact. We can predict a storm down to the millibar, but we cannot explain the storm of subjective experience we call consciousness. We have catalogued the causes of disease, yet we still grapple with the existential nature of suffering and evil. Our probes have sailed past the planets, but the question of whether the universe holds any intrinsic meaning echoes back at us from the void. The dragon and the Sphinx have endured not because they explain the mechanics of the world, but because they give form to the parts of existence that no equation can ever fully capture. They are the permanent inhabitants of the frontier, the symbols for that which resists all quantification. These creatures connect us directly to the primal awe our ancestors felt standing beneath a sky ablaze with unknowable stars. That feeling is not a primitive artifact to be outgrown. It is a fundamental human response to a reality that is, and may always be, infinitely more complex than our models of it. The true gift of these mythic beings is not a set of answers, but a perpetual invitation to wonder. They remind us that the most vital journey is not the conquest of the external world, but the endless, fascinating exploration of its meaning. These creatures were the ancient world's masterclass in critical thinking. They were not born from a fear of the dark, but from a courageous impulse to interrogate the very nature of the light. Every time a hero faced the Sphinx, they were not just fighting a monster, they were confronting the terrifying idea that the world is not a given, but a question. Every encounter with a shapeshifter was a brutal lesson in epistemology, forcing our ancestors to doubt the very evidence of their senses. The serpent in the garden was not merely a villain. It was the first revolutionary, challenging a prescribed reality and offering the dangerous, liberating gift of a choice. What these myths ultimately hand down to us is not a set of answers, but a sophisticated toolkit for navigating a universe that is fundamentally fluid. They teach us the value of cognitive flexibility, the ability to hold multiple, contradictory truths in our minds at once without shattering. They show us that the path to understanding is not a straight line, but a winding labyrinth where the Minotaur is not always a beast to be slain, but sometimes a part of ourselves we must finally meet. The real treasure these guardians protect is not gold or eternal life, but a more profound way of being in the world. It is an approach to existence that embraces uncertainty, finds wisdom in paradox, and remains forever curious. So the next time you feel the ground of your own certainty begin to shift, remember these ancient guides. See the world through the eyes of the Sphinx, who knows that every surface hides a deeper riddle. Move through it with the wisdom of the serpent, understanding that all growth requires a shedding of old skins, and face its illusions with the discernment learned from the shapeshifter, knowing that truth often wears a clever disguise. Their legacy is an invitation to live more deeply, to question more bravely, and to find wonder not in spite of the mystery, but because of it. I would love to hear which of these truth-questioning creatures resonates most with you and why. Share your thoughts in the comments below.